Welcome to Project Catalyst, an economic development podcast. I'm Tina Emerson, here today with Maynard Nexon economic development lawyer Tom Brinkley. Good to see you, Tom.
Good to see you too, Tina. Thank you.
Of course. Well, joining us today is Leigh Davis. She's the Senior Vice President of Customer Solutions and Business Development at Alabama Power Company. It's an electric utility that provides reliable, affordable electricity to more than 1.5 million customers. Leigh has held multiple senior roles with the Alabama Power Company and currently focuses her time on leading efforts across the state, supporting new and expanding industry and helping communities enhance their prospects for economic growth. Leigh, thanks for joining us today.
Happy to be here.
Great. Well, let's start at the top, and you can tell us a little bit about your various roles at Alabama Power and the history of the company in economic development.
Sure thing. So when you think about my organization, which is the Customer Solutions and Business Development team, that really encompasses a wide variety of customer-facing teams, whether it's the Economic Development Group, which Tom, I think you interface most frequently with. We also have our sales team. They support our existing industry, some of our largest customers. On the business front, we've got our Customer Solutions Group. Those are a lot of our marketing programs and ways in which we service our customers through electric vehicles and renewables and energy efficiency. And then last but not least is our Customer Operations Group. But people probably know that most readily as our customer service center. So when someone needs to reach out and have us help resolve any types of issues or add a service, they'll go through our business, our residential service center.
And who are some of the key partners that you work with throughout the state of Alabama?
Sure. So really, we partner across the state, whether it's at the state level, the local level, or even outside of our own state. So when we think about it at the state level, you're talking about EDPA, Commerce, Innovate Alabama, the newly created Alabama Growth Alliance. The local level, our local economic development organizations are critical, and they are organized through our Economic Development Association of Alabama. Even more importantly, are critical partners like Maynard. We think about the work that Tom does in terms of us partnering as we're working in, and Tom has worked some of the most critical projects in the state most recently. Those are really, really important partners for us. And then whether it's site selection consultants or other targeted allies and partners even around the country. And of course, with technology, it's a lot easier to access those individuals than even a few years ago when we had to hop on a plane and make those visits.
So, Leigh, first of all, thank you for joining us this morning. Always good to see you. And I really can't thank Alabama Power Company enough for what you all do in economic development. I mean, there's really not a project in Alabama that gets very far without your involvement. So we appreciate you and your team. You have a spectacular team. And thank you for being here. Let's talk a little bit about the involvement of Alabama Power Company in economic development. We're seeing, I think we all agree, an increasing number of projects that rely on an increasing amount of electricity. But we also have, from a product standpoint, electrification of a lot of industry products, such as electric vehicles, battery making, all of that. Can you tell us a little bit about where we stand today? Because it's changed a lot over the years, right? When we first started doing this, there were certain sectors that were focused, and now we're kind of looking at sweet spots for Alabama Power Company, both in terms of expertise around electricity, but also challengingly electrical demand itself. Could you tell us a little bit about some of the projects that you think stand out right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So, when we think about as we were really in or coming out of COVID a handful of years ago, it seems like a lifetime ago, there was really a kind of a shift in terms of electrification. As a utility, and I just got back from the EI annual meeting, a lot of the conversation was around how we really had flat growth as a utility industry. That's changed. So whether it's through electric vehicles and what we're seeing with our electric vehicle OEMs in the state, as they're starting to produce EVs, as we're looking at battery projects and the potential there, that's been one important piece as we look at how that impacts our ability to not just serve our existing industry, but attract new business. Starting in 2022, we had our first touch with a hyperscaler. Y'all seen the Meta announcement in Montgomery. That was a critical one for us. A lot of years of work to get us there, to really even have the state of Alabama on the radar to start being seen as a data center attracting state. So we were really excited about having that opportunity to work with Meta and have that announcement, which is in Montgomery. And then really just as we're looking at existing industry growth, we're always going to be a state that wants to welcome all kinds of business. And so it's very, very important for us to make sure that we're hitting a variety of different industry segments, not putting all our eggs in one basket with just one. But whether it's a data center or it's existing industry in another area or new business, all of those are industries that are going to be very, very important to our team, our company, and quite frankly, our state.
So you mentioned the Meta project, which is a big Central Alabama project that Alabama Power Company was a big part of. As you know, those data center projects, hyperscalers especially, have quite a low demand, which is a good thing. But at the same time, those are very high-paying jobs, high-quality jobs, but they do use a lot of electricity. So without giving us too much of your secret sauce, help us understand how a power company balances the challenge of the hyperscaler electrical demand with existing customers who also have demands and growing demands, and they want to expand as well. If all data centers that looked at Alabama were to be built, it would, of course, overwhelm the system, and that will never happen. But at the same time, how does Alabama Power Company balance those electrical needs and demands of existing customers with the hyperscalers?
That's a great question. So I would tell you in a nutshell, we really are making sure we have a disciplined approach to economic development and even new business development recruitment. And that disciplined approach really requires a lot more intensity with our internal collaboration. We've talked about external allies and partners and how critical those are. But even more important for us right now with these large load projects is to make sure that we internally, both within Alabama Power Company and across Southern Company, are making sure that our planning and our forecasting and just the communications between different groups are there. As we worked Meta, what was so wonderful about Meta, there are a couple of really great things I want to highlight. First is really the intentionality of where Meta located. What's great about Meta is it's not a huge labor draw compared to its neighbor Hyundai. And so when you're looking as you're locating something new next to something that's already there, you really want to make sure, just like you do in a residential neighborhood, you've got good neighbors. And so that was really important so that not only it was a success for Meta to be there, it was not a threat to Hyundai in terms of labor draw. And so as we look at where we are locating, whether it's a data center or other economic development projects, really that intentionality related to site development, site location is important. When we start talking, and we have been talking with other data center prospects, really some best practice and processes we put in place. We've got structures in place as we review the risk profile of different types of prospects as they come in, where they're locating, load, that's both generation and transmission. And so whether it's working with my senior production officer or our power delivery officer, or even more importantly, our chief financial officer, we've got these internal working teams and a process internally to make sure that we're preparing for that future so we can continue to be open for business.
And Leigh, you mentioned a minute ago about site development. How important is that for you and for the state of Alabama? What's Alabama Power doing to help communities, especially rural ones, prepare to have those sites available when companies want to locate?
You've hit two very important things: site development and rural. In our state, that rural component is so very important, and it's a very complex nut to crack. So we're constantly looking at the rural piece. But I'll step back on the site development. So one of the things that we did, site development's always been important. But when we were grounded during COVID, we really had to step back and say, how do we look at what we can do to be most productive during this time of uncertainty, and even, literally not being able to get out and about, because as you can imagine, economic development is a very it's a very travel heavy business. And so what we did was we really decided to take our talent in our own department, our technology resources, and really double down on spending more time on site development and how we look at sites, how we identify sites, how we prepare for that. So really trying to make sure we were using that time in a very good way. In the past, when you're trying to do that combined with 1,000 other things, sometimes that didn't get quite the attention that we could give it. We were able to give it that kind of attention. And I think the benefit of that is really seen in terms of the resources that we have, the sites we've been able to identify, and quite frankly, from a policy perspective with the state and partnering with them and others, being able to really see through seeds funding and other types of funding, those investments being made, and really ensuring as we work with communities and others that we're trying to identify those communities that are ready and right for that really we can match there and get the best bang for our buck.
And I'll just add that Alabama Power Company was very pivotal in focusing on industrial sites, site-ready sites around the state of Alabama, and helping identify those sites, which has been a huge part of the rural development initiative as well. They kind of are intertwined. Let's talk a little bit about a fairly new organization that has been created in Alabama, the Alabama Mobility and Power Center, or as we call it, AMP. We recently had Mike Oakridge, the executive director, join us as a guest on Project Catalyst, and he was quick to point out Alabama Power's pivotal role in helping move that initiative forward. Tell us a little bit about AMP and a little bit about Alabama Power Company's involvement in AMP, and why is that organization important for the future of the electrification that we've talked about?
Absolutely. Mike is fantastic. I remember meeting Mike when he was at Honda back in the day, and he's just a very innovative, creative leader. So we were very fortunate we were able to get him to take on the reins of leading AMP. Alabama Power is very proud to be one of the founding sponsors or partners with, I think it was with the University of Alabama, and also with Mercedes-Benz, another great existing great ally. So just in helping be a part of forming that, I think is important. Our focus on making sure that we not only are supporting electric vehicle industry in terms of existing industry and what they need here in the state, but really ensuring that because they've located in the state, that our state is really a leader across the country in terms of world-class R&D, battery innovation, charging infrastructure, and that workforce component that's so important. So for us, it's just a no-brainer to be able to support this organization and really help elevate the state of Alabama to really be a leader in the space. And we've just got some of the best talent and resources and even more partners that have come in to support this. The automotive industry is going to continue to be strong in the state, whether it's through electric vehicles or more traditional manufacture. And we want to make sure that we're right there with a seat at the table.
And Leigh, you just mentioned R&D. What else has Alabama Power been doing to improve its own technology and research capability to support industry?
Yeah. So, as far as what we do within our own organization, we've been making, and even within the economic development team, and I don't know if this would fall as far as R&D or just investments in technology, we're making sure that we've got not just project managers on our team that know the art of the deal, that have the relationships, that can make those connections, but really ensuring that we've got folks with a technology background that, and even an innovation background that can help inform things. So whether it's the increased emphasis on having folks with a GIS background and a technology background to help us with some of the more technical aspects of development, but also even with just the innovation piece. Very recently, we actually transitioned our innovation team. We have an internal innovation team that was in another part of the organization to be squarely under economic development. So when we're talking about entrepreneurial type of stuff, innovation type of stuff, partnerships with Innovate Alabama, which was set up a few years back, that all of that is within the same team, so we can really leverage the synergies with that.
Leigh, does Alabama Power Company work a lot with the EDPA, or Economic Development Partnership of Alabama? And tell us a little bit about how you all support them and they support you. Obviously, Greg Barker was a big part of Alabama Power Company and also of EDPA. And I know that you all have worked together collaboratively. It just dawned on me that when you're talking about technology and research capability, that is an important organization. Can you tell us a little bit about Alabama Power Company's involvement with EDPA?
Absolutely. So I've been around for a little while. Actually, my first foray into the economic development team was over 20 years ago, I think. So that ages me a little bit. But what's interesting is that actually EDPA was really birthed out of Alabama Power Company. we used to have kind of I can't remember, it's called the Alabama Resource Center, something like that, that was part of Alabama Power. And we had leaders many, many decades ago that basically felt that it was important to push that out of our organization, have a separate public-private economic development entity solely standing on its own that could really help support what not just Alabama Power, not just what Commerce does, but other economic allies in terms of really being a resource, and have that resource be for the benefit of the entire state, whether it's our service territory or North Alabama or other areas. So just watching as that's continued to evolve over the years, Greg Barker more recently, and really bringing in workforce development more heavily and innovation, handing those reins over to Miller Gervin, who's a phenomenal leader, and just what she's doing in terms of putting her own stamp on that. But we could not do what we do successfully without the Economic Development Partnership of Alabama. And just that ability and that emphasis on public-private is so critical. So whether it's through EDPA or even this newly formed Alabama Growth Alliance, we know that success in economic development cannot happen without strong partnerships between our public and private sector.
Well, we have time for a couple more questions. I know Tom was gearing up for one, so I'll let you get into yours, Tom, and then I will end it with what I probably think is the biggest question that sets us up for the future of Alabama Power. Go ahead, Tom.
So this is a question really about the legislative session this year. And Leigh, neither one of us go walk the halls of the State House as others do. But is anything come out of the 2025 legislative session that you think has been especially important for the future of economic development in Alabama?
Well, I'll first start with saying that I don't, thank goodness they don't have me walk in those halls. But I am so appreciative of not just the internal partners I have at Alabama Power and the work that they do in our external affairs group, but also those outside of our company, whether it's our public officials or other folks that really are in that ecosystem, and all the way up to our governor. We have a pro-business, pro-economic development state, and I am grateful for that. I don't take that for granted, and I know that we have to earn that in terms of being able to be positioned for that. So, we had a wonderful year this year with more success. I can't go without talking about the last few years of success with the Jobs Act, with the game plan. So what we really wanted to do this year was really build on that strong foundation that we'd had in prior years and have a really good year. So whether it was with increased seeds funding, which gets back to our site development and our ability to have sites ready for us to be able to land more projects, whether it's supporting commerce with more of an international commerce presence, which is so critical. Our state doesn't quite have the same international presence as other states, so we need to be in that game. And being able to see how that pays dividends in the coming years is going to be really great. And then even more importantly, we've talked about these large load projects, folks being able to rely on us to keep the lights on and be open for business. So having this infrastructure funding that passed, that's really aimed, I think, for us to be able to meet that increased energy demand, and seeing where we go with that is going to be really exciting.
Speaking about where we go, so let's talk about what's next. So looking ahead, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges as Alabama is competing with other states in the region? And also, what is exciting about Alabama's potential for future growth and development?
Sure. And a challenge is always going to be, how do we make sure that we are there to match and meet those load requirements and all those things, as we are in a big growth environment. Again, coming out of this EI meeting I just attended a few days ago, everybody's really laser focused on making sure that we are leading the way with all the growth opportunities we have, and just the importance of what that means to support advanced manufacturing and AI. It's not just about being able to land those businesses, it's what they do to actually accelerate other opportunities for our state, and honestly for our country to really be competitive in so many different ways. So that's both a challenge and exciting. I will tell you this, I think Ellen McNair, Secretary McNair, has done a phenomenal job really coming in. We talked about the transition to Miller Gervin and EDPA. Well, with Secretary Canfield's transition to Secretary McNair, and her really taking a strategic plan that Secretary Canfield had done when he came in, and really refreshing and enhancing that. And that's called our Catalyst Strategic Plan. That's going to be exciting. That has all kinds of opportunities for us to really make sure we're aligned and focused as a state, in terms of where we need to go in the future and how we can work together on that. And then just workforce. I would be remiss not to talk about our workforce. That is so important to our company and our state, but continuing to be on the forefront of how we're supporting workforce efforts. And then I didn't mention this as far as the last session, so I'll mention this now, is just what we're doing with the Veterans Resource Center. The veterans component to our workforce and in our state, and just what veterans have done for us and what we can do for them is absolutely critical. And having a company that makes that a priority and a state makes that a priority is incredibly exciting, and just what we can do with that as far as an opportunity.
That's fantastic. Well, Leigh, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it. You've got a lot of projects in the hopper, but we look forward to seeing what's next in significant growth for the state of Alabama. And thank you for everything you're doing at Alabama Power.
Thank you. And most importantly, I want to thank Maynard. I know Tom at the beginning mentioned how critical Alabama Power is in the economic development state. We would not have the success we have today if it wasn't for Tom and his team and the work that Maynard does in the state of Alabama. So thank y'all for that. Thank you for the time.
You're nice to say that, Leigh, but thank you very much for all you do. And thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you both very much. We'll see you next time on Project Catalyst. Project Catalyst, an economic development podcast, is a Maynard Nexon and NP Strategy production. To learn more about the podcast and subscribe, visit thecatalystpod.com or find us on your favorite podcast platform.